welcome everybody. Today we're going to be going over my top 10 PlayStation 2 games that I have in my collection. Let's get started. First of all, these are in no particular order. They're just my top 10. I was not going to go through the time and actually try and rank them. That'd be very, very difficult. As far as like one ahead of the other. So this is just a broad scope. 10 could be first could be 10th. It's just my top 10, or how like a lot of people would put it is if you were stuck on an island, what 10 games. These would be them out of my collection. I'm not including games that I don't own currently, just because that's just not how I'm doing this list. So let's get started. So to get started with, we'll go with number 10 is God of War, the original. And the reasoning for this one, big surprise here, I will warn you, most of these games are most of the highest sold games as well. Not surprising they're so good. So, the first God of War, I know the second God of War, a lot of people consider better. I mean, it was great. It did everything. I would say, yeah, even better. The difference was, though, the impact when this came out, it was just more mind-blowing, and there were actual moments in this game that I felt were far more impactful. Namely, when you bring Pandora's box out, and Ares senses it, and from across the world, basically, he hurls a chunk of log, wood, all the way at you and kills you, pierces you up against the wall, and you have to then go to hell and climb your way out of it. I just don't think 2 had that impact at that moment. After you got out and you're like, wow, that was awesome, and then you die and you go to hell and have to climb out. I feel like that made this game just better. Okay, get to number 9 here. I'm going to go with Guitar Hero 3 Legends of Rock. These were huge. I'm not a big Rock Band fan. I just kind of lost interest after this. The PS2 era, Guitar Hero would have been my main kind of go-to. In fact, we still have it hooked up. It's kind of our go-to. And this, I feel, is the best of them. Just the fact that you can duel each other, and the boss battles, the music selection. This is still before they just kept releasing add-on packs for, extra songs and stuff like that. You got everything on this. Great game. Okay, number 8. This game, 13. Probably surprises a few people, considering, especially, I doubt you can see that, but it says $1.99 is what I paid for it way back in the day. But this game was amazing. This game is still one of my favorite games of all time. And it's remarkable the hate that cel-shaded games got back in the day, and then to look back at them now. This was phenomenal. I loved the comic book action style. Sniping people with a crossbow, and it would do the zoom in, and you could see it, and this was a phenomenal game. And on top of that, the story. It actually was intriguing. The remake, I haven't tried it on the PS4. So obviously it must have been pretty popular to even get the remake, but I heard it was horrible. This game's amazing. Yeah, that's my number 8. Alright, my number 7. This is actually got to be close to a launch title. I would think this is one of the earlier games for the system. Yeah, 2001. But I spent so much time in this, and that's Onimusha. Again, they made sequels to these, and they were great as well, but I just spent more. When this one first came out, the impact The other ones were great, but this one blew my mind. I wasted so much time on this. It's just I think a underrated. I know it's rated good and stuff, but no one really talks about the first one on the all-time greats list. And this thing did stuff that I feel like became staples in some games later that people just forget about. All right, keep it moving. I'm trying to keep this video pretty short today. All right, next one, we're at number 6. Okay, this one, ATV Off-Road Fury 2. I think a lot of people would crap on this game too. It's a great game. It sold a lot. But I think a lot of purists out there would be like, oh, you can't have that on your top 10 list. But hey, this if it wasn't for the first one and the second one of these, we would not have like motocross racing games that I feel like we have today. This pioneered that. Before these, they were kind of garbage. And then this changed everything. And people just downplay it way too much. Like, here's some of the tracks on here, okay? Some of the bands from Garbage Corn, Cypress Hill, Alien Ant Farm, System of a Down. I mean, that's banging stuff. I played tons and tons of hours, me and my father and my friends on this game. Love this game. All right, we're to the top 5. So now that we're at the top 5, I'm going to do a couple honorable mentions just because, there's a couple that could have made the list, and I'm sure people bring up, and it was hard deciding. I could have flip-flopped a few of these, but they just didn't make it. I'll be brief on these. So one of them, Dragon Quest 8. I'm an RPG guy. This is a good RPG. It just is not as good as the other ones I feel I picked on my list. But great game. I recommend it. This one, I won't do that honorable mention just because it might hint at some other ones. So we'll do another one. Soul Calibur 2. Again, I feel this one's overlooked. It's probably like the least desirable of the versions just because you get a fighting character as the guest star in a fighting game, where the Xbox and the GameCube versions got actual, characters that weren't typically fighter characters, and I feel that made him more appealing. But Soul Calibur 2, hands down, was a league of its own, kind of in that era. And to think that we don't even really talk about Soul Caliburs anymore, they've went really downhill in comparison to like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighters, them, is really crazy to me. I put a lot of hours into this. Okay, another honorable mention. We're gonna go with Bully. Yeah, I don't got to say much about it. Great game. It's just not. If I had to replay through some of them, this isn't one that I would get. I wouldn't want to replay as much as some of these other ones. So, again, great game. Honorable mention. Highly recommend. All right. Let's get back to my top 10. So, we're at number 5. Okay. Number 5. Going to go with Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec. This was one of the most sold. Now we're getting into, these are some of the most sold games out there. I know Gran Turismo 4 came out, and technically, it pushed the PS2 to the limits, all that stuff, but I spent so much time with this. Me and my dad and my friends would sit there, and I remember doing a couple races that were multiple hour. Like, you sit down, this is simulation, you're going to do this race, and it's an hour and 45-minute race with pit stops, and that's crazy. And it also was a little bit better. What I liked about it, compared to almost any other racing game, it was the first one where you could mess a car up in your tuning. So a lot of racing games their upgrades were arbitrary. They were just stat boosts in staggered amounts or increments or however you want to look at it, where this tried to actually implement like compatibility that you would have in real life scenarios. So just going and buying that big turbo and putting it on there could ruin your car if you didn't have the right stuff to correspond with it. So that was really interesting to me. It wasn't about, oh, you just throw money at it and have to buy the upgrades, but you actually have to kind of figure out how to do the upgrades in the right way as well. All right, number 4, I'll just get one of these out. So number 4, we're going to go with Kingdom Hearts, the first one. Again, I seems to be kind of kicking a dead horse in what I'm saying, that most of these have a sequel, and I personally felt the originals were the superior. This is the same thing. It came out. There was also Kingdom Hearts 2, but the first one, the Disney collaboration, we had seen it before, kind of, with like a Super Mario RPG. We've seen collaborations before, but this was different. It was like playing the movies, the cartoons, interactively. My only reason why I picked this instead of the second one is this one's very baseline. I felt the story was simple enough, and the combat, and it got you into it pretty quick. And they did use up some of the stronger IPs. The second one had great IP, worlds as well, but I wasn't a huge fan of some of the combat changes. I think they tried to build on stuff that really didn't need built on. So, the first Kingdom Hearts, I think, superior, and that would be the number 4. And again, these aren't in really any order. To be honest with you, God of War could be 4. They're just my top 10 in general. All right, so on that note of Kingdom Hearts, we're just going to jump right in. And so number 3, we got Final Fantasy X. Looks like I paid $1 for it on there. That's shows you again. So, like, one of the most sold games ever. Everybody's already heard about Final Fantasy X. Great RPG. I'm a huge RPG fan. Got this at launch that it came out and was enamored with it. Some of my most vivid gaming memories are trying to get the ultimate weapons on this. Me and my friend counting each other's lightning bolts, dodges, up to 200. I will never forget that. That was horrible. With this one, I do want to say, a lot of people talk about, so with this one, when it was released, the board system that you level through is different than all the re-releases. They change things up. And I'm going to say that I don't like that. This is my definitive version. I don't like how they've changed any of the stuff in any of the remasters or the remakes or re-releases, however you want to look at them. This is how it was meant to be played, and it was just fine this way. All the changes are unnecessary. So, Final Fantasy X, PS2, I feel the definitive edition. You don't need any other. Way better than the PS4. Okay, we're in top 2. Might as well. Number 2, jump right to Final Fantasy 12. Same thing with Final Fantasy X. Got it at launch. This isn't my original. I used to have the Steelbook, but that's how things go. This one, a lot of people kind of hate on a little bit because of some of the changes they went to. But what really did it for me was using the world of Ivalice, and I liked the combat. It was open. some of my favorite RPGs are where everyone can be everything. I do not always, not to say I won't play them, but I don't always enjoy as much the RPGs that are linear in you're set in these roles, and yeah, you can pick between different characters that have them roles, but those are their roles. Where in these games you could make each character whatever role you wanted on this version. So this is just like Final Fantasy X and has been re-released. And I want to say it's been dumbed down. Okay, that's how I'm going to put it, is they have dumbed it down. And it they ruined it. I don't know. I hear so many people talk about, "Oh, they fixed it. Now I can play it." And no. They first of all, they they redid the job system and the learning system of it, but then on the first one of the re-releases, okay, and then they changed it again to where then you could pick two of them. They've tried changing it so many times that I it's just not desirable. The way it should be played, and I think the best way to play it, is on the PS2, just like this. Again, it allows you to make your characters however you want it, not being told by the system, oh, this guy has to be this. And that same issue with my Final Fantasy X remakes. So number 2. Okay. We're going to do a couple more honorable mentions before I do my last one. So, honorable mention, Lord of the Ring and the Two Towers. I'd have put the Return of the King, but I don't have it, surprisingly. These were phenomenal. I feel like I looked up the sales on these, and they were lower than I suspected by quite a bit. Everyone I knew had these. It seemed like you could find this game and Return of the King everywhere when this was out. And at the time, this was like playing the movie, and your ability to choose, the characters, level them up, it actually gave you some choices of how to play. They were phenomenal. Way overlooked. Could have easily made my top 10 game. I remember playing this and replaying it over and over and over again. Another honorable mention, San Andreas. I'm pretty sure this is the most sold game on the PS2. Great game. It was just at the end of my interest in this kind. So, I mean, I played this, obviously, but I was at an age that I wasn't as dedicated to playing games as much. So, I just didn't get into it as much. It has great features, all that stuff. I just never got into it as much as some of the other games. And it really felt like it was kind of just a timing, whatever was going on in my life at that point. I just didn't have the time and attention to get into this like that. But can't deny that honorable mention, huge sales numbers. So with that being said, my number 1 game, considering San Andreas was an honorable mention, you should think that one of the Grand Theft Autos would make the top 10 list, and it is Vice City. This is, again, not my number 1 game that I own. I'm just saying this is, in any order. But Vice City, I got into. 3 blew my mind. It blew my mind the first time I played 3. It was like playing Halo for the first time. Literally just kind of mind-blowing at the scope of some of it. And then this came out and it just refined it. It was a little brighter. The comedy, there are just a little bit differences. And they just added a couple little things that made, it more user-friendly. And I put so much time. I played this game through multiple times for no reason, and I knew where everything was in it. This was a phenomenal game. So that's it. That's my top 10 PlayStation 2 games that I have in my collection. There's obviously some that I don't have that could have made that list, but that wasn't the point of this video. It was just to kind of go through the games that I have and give you guys an idea of what I consider my top 10. And what do you guys think? Are any of them your top 10, or it feels a little generic to me? A lot of people, I feel like, come out with some, real under the table hidden gems, or try and throw some people for a loop, or I don't know. And mine, like I said, you could look at the sales charts and I'm pretty sure 6 or 7 of them are in the top 10. So that feels a little cookie cutter, but what can you say? I'm not gonna pick lesser games just to try and be unique. They were good games for obvious reasons. Their sales numbers show it, and that's my list. Thank you guys, and I'll catch up with you next time.